tomorrow afternoon. Whitaker now has just drawn this line in the sand saying that he will not show up unless he is assured he will not be subpoenaed should he avoid answering certain questions. Not only that, but Whitaker has put the committee chairman here, Jerry Nadler, on the clock, saying that he wants that assurance in writing tonight, no later than 6 p.m. All of this is happening as the president's permanent pick for Attorney General, William Barr, just cleared a big hurdle of his own. The Senate Judiciary Committee voting to advance his nomination to a final confirmation vote next week. So we start with Laura Jarrett, our CNN Justice reporter, who is all over this breaking news. And so starting with this development out of the DOJ between, Whitaker and Nadler, can you take us inside this standoff and what is going on?
Well, we're really in a limbo mode at this point, Brooke, with a will he or won't he show up tomorrow. As you mentioned, that 6 p.m. deadline now ticking away that Whitaker has imposed for the House Judiciary Committee, the chairman, Jerry Nadler, to let him know whether or not he's willing to withdraw that subpoena that was sort of preemptively issued earlier today for his testimony. As we know, Nadler wanted to have that subpoena in his back pocket in case Whitaker tried to avoid questions on executive privilege grounds. Well, Whitaker and the Justice Department now saying that's not fair. This is a breach of the agreement. I was willing to come voluntarily, but I will not discuss my confidential communications with the president, which is something Democrats have really keyed in on. And part of the reason they were so highly anticipating this testimony from Whitaker could really be their last shot at him, as Bill Barr is now on track to get confirmed as early as next week. And so this was their chance to question Whitaker about his oversight of the special counsel's probe, about his communications with President Trump, how he got the job, why he chose not to recuse himself from overseeing the Mueller probe. And so they wanted to question him on all of those issues, but he's saying that his conversations with the president are protected, privileged, that past administrations have recognized that, and so he's not willing to discuss that. He says that this would really turn into a public spectacle, and while he's happy to entertain questions about oversight of the Justice Department, he's not willing to go there, Brooke.
Laura Jarrett, thank you very much for the reporting. Harry Lippman is here with me. He's a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. Harry, so you have Whitaker saying, all right, if you don't tell me give me this assurance by 6 o'clock tonight, I'm not showing up tomorrow. Can you run us through possible scenarios?
Yes. Now, first of all, remember, Nadler had said he wanted to hear from him by Wednesday. So Whitaker is...
He's given him the 48 hours.
They're playing a game of poker here. Scenario one, as it might have been 15 years ago when they got along better. Very quick negotiated compromise. Perhaps Whitaker talks about some things and some others. Hard to see there's time for that. Scenario two, he shows up and just asserts executive privilege about all the things they want to know. Hard to see that happening. Scenario three, it gets put off. But as Laura said, next week, he's not the acting attorney general anymore. And you could still subpoena him. The Republicans in the last Congress sort of broke the rules. And even if he's a line attorney somewhere, they could try to bring him in. But the air is sort of let out of the tires at that point. The Republicans on the committee say, we don't need to know that anymore. It may, this last-minute gambit, which was obviously planned for a long time, may actually keep him from testifying.
What does this last-minute gambit tell you about what Whitaker's plans for tomorrow were? Because there were all these thoughts about might he cite executive privilege here and there. What does this tell you about him?
They never were, one thing it tells us, they never were to answer the questions that Nadler and the committee and the American people most want to hear. They were always going to assert executive privilege there, and even though Nadler brandishes a subpoena, that would be a long-time legal battle. Would he have said the other things? I'm not sure. The other thing it says is, and supposedly he's nervous, sweating, not doing a very good job, knows he's going to get whipsawed on the committee. The other thing it might tell you is he don't want to be there tomorrow.
Okay. He may very well not be. Yeah. Harry, hang with me because I got more questions for you, but I want to move on to this. After 2 years of Republican control in Washington, President Trump is getting a preview of what his next 2 years could be like with Democrats running the House. And it all boils down to a little something those Democrats say has been sorely lacking on Capitol Hill: oversight. Trump's policies, his staff, his finances, all under the microscope during multiple hearings over the course of the next 2 days. Maybe now -1. This morning, the president trotted out one of his favorite attacks on Twitter, slamming the probes as presidential harassment. And as you may have well guessed, the head of the House Judiciary Committee sees things very, very differently.
There are a whole list of questions we don't know the answers to about foreign interference in the election, foreign influence over this administration. and garden variety corruption, interference with justice, obstruction of justice, abuse of power in many ways, and we have to track all of that down. We can't allow the administration to stonewall us. We came in, and we mean business.
Chris Cillizza is our CNN politics reporter and editor at large. So, Chris, break down exactly what's going on.
Yeah, well, look, Brooke, the truth of the matter is on November 8th of last year, it should have been very clear to Donald Trump what was coming down the pike. This is what divided government looks like, going all the way back to Bill Clinton with the Republican House. Oversight and investigation central to what House Democrats had always planned when they took over the majority. I think he is, though, you're right, just realizing now, okay, so what are they looking at? Honestly, there's probably more, but let's go through some of the big ones. Okay, I'm going to start over here because I think this one is the one most people think about. Trump's tax returns. He was in the 2016 campaign the only major party presidential candidate to release 0 of his tax returns. He is currently the only president in the modern era since Watergate to release 0 of his tax returns. He said it's under audit. He said he can't, he could do it, but he's not going to. There is a way through the Ways and Means Committee run by Richard Neal. Richard Neal, Democrat from Massachusetts, has some access to those returns, allegedly. There'll be a legal fight. But that's one. Look, Trump's finances, this deals with the Trump International Hotels, putting his names on things, what he owes people. These two are tied in many ways because we don't know what his debts look like. We don't know what investments he has really because we don't have a detailed analysis. Whatever he says about how his personal wealth statements tell more of a story than his tax return, they don't. Let me jump over here. Okay, the Russia probe. So, yes, obviously Bob Mueller is continuing his investigation, but there will be an element of this, particularly once the report ends. It's going to leave some avenues that you could potentially go down and ask questions about. That's another one where I think they're going to go to. And then with these two, they've fallen out of the news, but they really shouldn't. Security clearances. You'll remember, Brooke, Donald Trump took away former CIA head John Brennan's security clearance because he was overly critical of Donald Trump. Democrats want to look into, can you do that? Can a president do that just because someone is critical of you? Is that fair grounds? And then family separation is obviously still an issue. Donald Trump's administration insists they didn't change policy. The facts disagree. Regardless, we had a number of children, young children, separated from families for sometimes months on end. So all of this is going to come under the purview of the House. They're going to be strategic. I think that's one thing that's important. Nancy Pelosi is urging strategy, especially as it relates to Trump's tax returns. Do not put the cart before the horse. Make sure you got everything in a row so that it is unassailable when the investigation begins, so it doesn't look partisan, number one, and so that it has the best chance of succeeding, number two. Back to you, bro.
Yep. It's so different, the reactions from these, freshman members of Congress, and then juxtapose that with Speaker Pelosi, where she's saying, let's not scattershot this.
Correct.
Let's slow our roll. Chris Cillizza, thank you very much. Right now, congressional lawmakers are still grilling Trump administration officials about the president's controversial zero-tolerance border policy. The program separated thousands of children from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. Many of them still have not been reunited with their families. And today's hearing comes after an Inspector General report released last month found more children were separated than the government had reported. So today, members of a House subcommittee wanted to hear from Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, but he declined to appear, angering Democrats. The department's efforts to reunite families was a major flashpoint.
Does anyone know how many are still separated from their parents? Nobody knows.
I want to be very clear. Children in ORR custody, children who have been in ORR custody, who were in ORR custody on the 26th of June, we have laboriously worked to identify those.
No, I understand, but
challenges those who exited ORR custody. Because HHS did not receive from DHS any list or any indication of the complete set of separated children.
I just feel like what's been happening is more than irresponsible and sloppy. But I really think that what we're talking about is state-sponsored child abuse, and I would go as far as to say kidnapping.
Commander White also said if he had been asked about the Trump policy, he would have rejected it.
Would you have advised DOJ or DHS to implement the policy of zero tolerance if they had asked?
Neither I nor any career person in ORR would ever have supported such a policy proposal. I do not believe that separation of children from their parents is in the best interest of the child, but I did not participate in the discussions regarding the policy.
Lawmakers plan to question Azar when he comes to testify about the budget. And now the special counsel, Robert Mueller's probe, appears to be winding down. Interest in the president's other associations, particularly as it relates to his finances, appear to be on fire. Remember the red line that Trump had talked about? In a New York Times interview, he warned no one should delve into his or his family's personal finances beyond the special counsel investigation.
Mueller was looking at your finances, your family's finances, unrelated to Russia. Is that a red line?
Would that be a breach of what his actual...
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes.
Harry Littman is back with me. And so, Harry, the CNN poll out today, 9 out of 10 Americans think the Mueller report should be made public. And in a climate where so many people can't even agree on, like, the color of the sky,
right,
that 9 out of 10 Americans are saying it should be public, what does that tell you?
Well, you know, it's sort of like 9 out of 10 would like an early winter. It's really not very controversial. And not simply because everyone wants to see it, but look, it's a surpassing national priority. This is like 9/11, the Warren Commission. We got to know what happened here, quite apart from your feelings about Trump and if you want to see him in jail, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
What the heck happened with the election in 2016? We got to know.
Lastly, you know, the president's anger today, he said, you know, in the back and forth with the New York Times, you know, that his personal finances would be crossing this red line. And now you have not only the special counsel investigation, you have the federal prosecutors investigating, you have congressional committees investigating, all involving his finances. And he really can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, there never was a red line. There's no such thing. And he does now have a 360-degree kind of focus on it. But it's not simply that it's fitting the same way it was in Whitewater, where they went back to Arkansas. It's also now because of his own actions. They're tied together. His personal finances and the possible influence from Russia are sort of one and the same, as you're finding out more and more every month. So it would be all the more untenable that you could somehow leave that part of the story out.
Harry, thank you. Harry,
Thanks for having
good
me.
to see you. Happening right now, it's being billed as a fight over the president's mysterious tax returns. Democrats are holding their first hearing right now and expected to put a big old spotlight on this issue that the president has long refused to make public. But where actually physically are those tax returns? Are they actually in a safe behind lock and key? CNN has these fascinating new details surrounding this question. And as Speaker Nancy Pelosi warns Republicans, another shutdown is quote unquote too hot to handle. One of her party's newest freshmen introducing her Green New Deal. Find out what's in it. You're watching CNN.